If I could ever turn back time and do it all again, you know that I would, you know that I would.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. Today is going to be the long-awaited book haul. There is a lot of books in this haul. It's a collective haul, so I have been accumulating these books slowly, not all at once, but there are quite a few books in here, so I wanted to show you the books that I will be reading this summer, and I am really excited for all of the books that I have on my shelves now. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And again, I do know this is a lot of books, but reading makes me happy, and what I like to say is at least I'm not doing drugs. So without further ado, let's get into the books. So I do have majority fiction books, but I do have a couple of non-fiction books that I wanted to show you, so we'll start with that. So the first one is called How to Calm Your Mind, Finding Presence and Productivity in Anxious Times by Chris Bailey. Now this is something that is really up my alley, and I did purchase this during a really anxious time during school, and I do want to get to this eventually this summer so I can really take away some important coping skills and messages from this one. I've heard really good things about it. Now this next one is by an author that we talk about quite a bit in school, especially in our health psychology course, and that is Gabor Mate. And this is his newest book, The Myth of Normal: Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture. Now this one is huge. Like, I think this is like 500 pages, but I again have heard really great things about Gabor Mate, and like I said, we have spoken about him in class and some of his quotes and videos we've watched, so I'm really interested to get into this. This is a topic that really intrigues me, especially with what I've learned the past 2 semesters at school, how trauma is really linked to illness and that kind of thing. So yes, I will get to this eventually, but this will have to be a during the day book because I feel like there is a lot of information in this book. The next nonfiction, I actually started reading this and I took a little bit of a break. I read like the first section, and this is The Defining Decade: Why Your 20s Matter and How to Make the Most of Them by Meg J. And again, I've heard really great things about this. I read the career section so far, and it had some really great insights and tips, and there's some other sections. I think the next one is about love and relationships, brain and body connection, and yes, I am enjoying this so far. And I've also heard that this is one of those books, as the title suggests, that you should read in your 20s, that a lot of people take some valuable lessons from it, so I'm excited to continue on with this. And the last book is Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. And again, I've heard some really great things about this, and I also got the Burnout workbook, and I was going to share this with my mom so we can both read it and utilize the journal. I also bought this at the exact same time as that other book when I was going through a really stressful period at school. So my main goal for next year is to have a better work-life balance and to also be less stressed. So this is a must-read for me. So let's get into the fiction. So most of these are romance, but there are going to be some fantasy sprinkled in there. The first 2 books is by the same author. I've been really wanting to read some of this author's books for a while. They get a lot of hype on TikTok and Booktube and that kind of thing, and I found these for a really great price and I was excited to pick them up. So first I have From Luke Off with Love by Mariana Zapata, and I believe this is about a pair of figure skaters. It's an enemies to lovers story, and I've heard that her romances are very slow burn, so I'm excited to see if I really like this. And this is also the Indigo exclusive edition, and I got this for a really great price because I think the other book, I know they are, but I think they are redoing the cover, and I guess they're just trying to sell the rest of these. So, but I really like this cover. And on Amazon, these books are really, really pricey, the independent version, so I'm glad I got these ones. And then the other one is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, and I believe this is about a football player and his assistant, and apparently he's really mean to her at the beginning, but they somehow form a relationship throughout this. The next few books are from a series. Now, I did read the first book already and I enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to read the rest of the series because I've heard that it only gets better, and that is the Magnolia Parks series. So I read the first book, which is Magnolia Parks, and this is just about Magnolia and BJ and their friend group, but mainly about Magnolia and BJ. They're in this like toxic sort of relationship. They have a lot of history together. This is like rich British Gossip Girl is what a lot of people describe this as, and I really enjoyed this. It's definitely a different style of writing, but it was still really, really great. And then the second book is Daisy Hates. This book, I believe, runs at the same timeline as the first book, but it's about Christian and Daisy, which are two other characters in the group. Christian's one of the friends in the groups, and Daisy comes in. I'm not really sure where she comes from, but this is her first book, so that's the second book. And then the third book is The Long Way Home, which is the second book of Magnolia and BJ. And then the last book that's out in the series right now is Daisy Hates the Great Undoing. And this is again about Daisy and Christian, and I believe one of the other characters in the group. I think somebody's brother, I forget exactly, but yeah, I've heard really great things about this one. These next books are from Book Depository, so I made quite a big order from Book Depository because they closed at the end of April, and there was quite a few books on there that were a really good deal that are probably $10 to $15 more at Indigo, Chapters, that kind of thing. So they're closing. It was my last chance that I could get these books, and I treated myself after having my surgery, so these are the books that I got. So the first one is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Now this is a rom-com about a hockey player and a figure skater. I believe one of their rinks gets destroyed and they end up having to share a rink, and a romance arises. So I've heard some really great things about this, so I'm excited to get into this when I'm in the mood for a rom-com. And then the next books are from another series. Now I have just finished the first book and I really enjoyed it, and this is the Never After series by Emily McIntyre, and there's a short story behind this series. Now, I have been wanting to read these books for a while. They've been on my list for a while, but then Emily McIntyre popped up on my For You page on TikTok, and she's actually going through breast cancer right now. She's going through chemo, and that just made me want to support her even more. I really wanted to read her books before that, but that just made me want to support her even more. So yeah, I read the first one, which is Hooked, and I really enjoyed it. So these books they're fractured fairy tales, so they're based off of certain fairy tales, but very loosely based, like they're in modern day, and they are the villains' romances. So the first one is Hooked, which is based off of Peter Pan, and the romance is between Hook and Wendy. This was really good. It's very, I think this is my first dark romance. There was quite a few dark themes in here, so I can see why not everyone this would be their cup of tea, and it was quite spicy too, but I really enjoyed it, and it didn't feel like every other romance that I've read, so it felt fresh. So that's the first one. The second one is Scarred, which is loosely based off of The Lion King, and I believe this is between Scar and, I don't really recognize the girl's name, but anyways, it's based off of The Lion King. The third book is Wretched, which is based off of The Wizard of Oz, and it's between the Wicked Witch of the West, yes, and the Tin Man. And then the last book that's out right now is Twisted, which is loosely based off of Aladdin, and this is a romance between Jafar and Jasmine. And there is another book that's coming out that's based on the Hunchback of Notre Dame, so I am excited to continue on in this series. I've actually heard that a lot of people's favorite is Scarred, which is the second book, so I'm excited to get to that. The next book, also from Book Depository, is again a part of a series. I've read the first one and absolutely loved this, and this is actually my current read, and that is Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. So this is the second book in the Knock 'Em Out series. The first one is Things We Never Got Over, which is the blue cover, and like I said, I loved that one, so I am excited to get further into this. This is about Knox, who's the main character in the first book, his brother, and his ex-girlfriend, Knox's ex-girlfriend. So yes, I am excited to get into this. There's also a bit of a mystery based on something that happened in the first book. Next from Book Depository is yet another series. Now this is by an author that I've read almost her entire other series, and that was the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher. I still have one book left to read in that series, but I really enjoyed it. So I decided to pick up the Dreamland Billionaire series. So the first one is The Fine Print. The second one is Terms and Conditions. And the last one is Final Offer. Now these books are based on this family, these three brothers, and their grandfather basically owns Disney World, or like their equivalent to Disney World, which is Dreamland. And I guess their grandfather dies, and in his will he tasks each of the grandsons to this like one stipulation that they have to complete in order to inherit their portion of the Dreamland estate. So we have one more series, and I have read the first book and I really enjoyed it, and this is the Twisted series by Anna Huang. So I did read the first book, which was Twisted Love, and I really enjoyed this. This was like a brother's best friend romance. Her brother asks his best friend to protect her while he's going away on a trip, and it turns into something more. The second one is called Twisted Games. This is a princess bodyguard romance. And Twisted Hate is the third one, and I believe this is between the first book, the main girl's brother, and one of her friends, I believe. So this is like a doctor romance. And then this one, I can't remember what the trope for this one is, but this is the last one in the series. And like I said, I really enjoyed the first one, and I've heard again that the second one is a lot of people's favorites. So that is definitely going to be one of my next reads. And in the same theme, I got another book by that author from Book Depository, and this is part of a new series, but I believe that some of the characters from the Twisted series also show up in these books, so I have to wait until I'm finished with the Twisted series to start this one. And this is King of Wrath by Anna Huang. And this is another millionaire, billionaire romance. I think this is an arranged marriage. And then the last book that I got from Book Depository was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And I just really like this UK cover. I don't really love the cover here, and this one was a good price, so I decided to pick it up. This again has been on my list to read for a very long time. The premise of this is just very interesting, and it's about this girl that she makes a deal that she wants to basically be immortal, but there's a catch. So she is immortal, but every person that she meets, once she finishes with that interaction, nobody remembers her. So it's a very lonely life. So I guess she 300 years of her life, she lives this way until she meets a guy that does remember her. These next books are from Costco, and Costco has some really great deals on books, especially some newer releases, but these ones, I don't think they're very new releases, but they're popular. So first we have Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. I don't know a lot about this one, but actually one of my friends has read it, and I think she said this is her favorite book by Colleen Hoover, so I am intrigued to read this. It says, damaged people recognize other damaged people. It's like a club you don't want a membership to. So very intriguing. I'll see if I like this. I do tend to enjoy Colleen Hoover books. There's that one. And then the next two are also Colleen Hoover, but they are like a series. So the first book is Maybe Someday, and then the second book is Maybe Now. And these are, I believe, newer covers. So, and again, I don't know a whole lot about this one. I know these are some of Colleen Hoover's earlier published books, and they just kind of got republished. A blurb on the back says, a brilliant and realistic portrayal of two people falling head over heels in love, complete with all the emotions and complications that accompany it. Maybe Someday is exactly what a new adult should be. So it's a love story, but it's also, I guess, about the messiness of love, and that seems right up my alley. So, and the last book from Costco is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Now, I mentioned this in my last book video. I did get Happy Place on my birthday because that's going to be our next book club read. But I have read Beach Read by Emily Henry, and for some reason it just didn't give me the feels as a lot of people have experience with that book. But I think I'm going to reread it at some point because maybe it just wasn't the right time for me to read it. But this is one of her newer books, Book Lovers, and it's about a publisher. I think they might be both publishers. They're like an enemies to lovers sort of situation. I'm hoping I like this one better. Actually, one of my friends, I think, read this one and she said she enjoyed it a lot more than Beach Read, so I'm interested to see what I think. And the next one is another actually Indigo exclusive edition, and this was a really great price as well. So I think the same thing is probably happening, that they're redoing the cover or something like that. But this is Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. Now, I haven't read anything by Penelope Douglas yet, but I've heard some really great things about their books. And this one, I believe they have been pen pals since they were young, but they have some pretty gender neutral names. So the teachers that paired them, it was supposed to be two boys, but it ended up being a girl and a boy. So that's how they begin to talk, but they have this pact. They're not going to share photos, social media, nothing like that, so that they can identify each other. But at some point in the book, the guy comes across a photo of her by accident and he guesses that it's her. And I guess when they do eventually meet in person, they don't really like each other. So I am really intrigued by this one. And again, this will be my first Penelope Douglas. Now the next two books are fantasy. So the first one I'm excited to get into, but it is quite large and quite intimidating. But I know once I get into it, I will just power through it. And this is Crescent City, the first book, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This is another series by Sarah J. Maas. She's also the one that wrote the ACOTAR series, which I've read that whole series and absolutely loved it. And she's also wrote the Throne of Glass series, which is a series that I've been trying to thrift and get the old covers and save some money. So this is the first book of her other series that I think the third book is coming out in time in the fall, but this is how chunky it is. But I've heard some really great things about this one. I've also heard that it's a little bit slow at the beginning, but once you get into it, it's really great. And they have the second one out, but it's only in hardcover, and hardcovers are so expensive, especially books this huge. So I'm gonna wait to get the soft cover when it does eventually come out, because I'm sure I'm gonna love this. But yeah, this is definitely something that I want to read in the summer before I go back to school. So I just wasn't sure if I should read Throne of Glass first or if I should start with this, but there's only 2 books out in this series so far, so maybe I'll start with this, but there might be a certain order, so I don't know. If you've read these series, let me know if it makes a difference. Should I read Crescent City first, Throne of Glass first, or does it matter? And the other fantasy that I have is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent, and I believe there's 2 books and a novella out in this series, and I've heard some really great things about it. I've heard that this is kind of compared to ACOTAR, but then some people say that it's not. But this is basically about a human living in a world of vampires, and I guess she was adopted by this vampire king when she was very young. And it's kind of like the Hunger Games, where they compete in a tournament and whoever wins gets a wish granted or something like that. But there's also some romance sprinkled in here too, so I think this is something that is up my alley, and I will be reading this when I am in the mood to read a fantasy. So we have 3 more books. I know this has been quite the haul, but these 3 came from the Book Outlet. The Book Outlet is actually a really great place to buy books because they are either like overstocks of books or there's like a little bit of damage on the book, but in my experience with ordering books, I really haven't gotten anything that's been that damaged, and some of the books that they have on there are newer releases. So the first one is another book by Sally Rooney. This is Beautiful World, Where Are You? And I have read Normal People. I read Normal People, I think it was last summer, and I really enjoyed that. So I am looking forward to getting into this. I do also want to read Conversations with Friends, which is another book which is her other book, and there's also a TV show for that one too, so I'll eventually get to that one, but we're gonna start with Beautiful World, Where Are You? I feel like her books do talk about some important, relatable conversations, especially with people in their 20s, and I am intrigued for this one. And then the next book is another popular book. I don't know a whole lot about this one, but I was excited to see it on Book Outlet, and it's one that I've seen everywhere and people are really loving it. So this is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, and I believe there's a second one that's out right now, but this is about a group of 6 and they're part of this society. I think this is like kind of like dark academia, where they're like at this academy sort of, and they're trying to be a part of this secret society, but there seems to also be sort of like a mystery in there and about survival and that kind of thing. So I'm interested to see if I like this. I've also heard some people said that this is a little bit confusing, that the writing style is definitely unique, so we'll see how this goes. And the last book, I was really excited to see this on Book Outlet. Now, I have read quite a few of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That was my first one that I read from her, and I really loved that. I've read One True Loves, which was also a good one. Maybe in Another Life, that one was good. Daisy Jones and the Six, that wasn't my favorite, but I still liked it. And all in all, I think that I enjoy Taylor Jenkins Reid as an author, and I did get for Christmas, I've showed in a video before, and I still have to get to that. I was actually keeping it for the summer. I did get Malibu Rising for Christmas, and it's a very summery read, so I've been waiting to read that for summer, for the nicer weather. A lot of her books, some of the characters intertwine, so this book is about the kids of one of the husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And then the book that I got off of Book Outlet is her newest release, which is Carrie Soto is Back, which I've heard that Carrie Soto actually appears in Malibu Rising. So I'm going to read this one first, and then I'm going to get to Carrie Soto is Back. So this one is about Carrie Soto. She was a professional tennis player, and I believe either she had an injury or something, and she's older now and she wants to get back into the game and win the full thing. So this is the whole story of how she did that and how she trained to compete again. So I've again heard a lot of great things about this one, and I've heard too that even though it's about tennis, it's a lot more than that. Wow, so that is all of the books that I have to show you today. I am super grateful to have all of these books on my shelves and to have a full list of books to pick from to read this summer. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below what book you're currently reading, or what book that you recently purchased that you're excited to start reading. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.